And you're listening to Dotun on Sunday on BBC Radio London. If you'd like to join in the conversation, the number to call is 0800 731 2000. We've been asking you if you've had experience of, if you like, institutional racism in the workplace, historically, once upon a time. And you realise now that, hang on a second, this was unwanted, intolerable, and perhaps even illegal. What can you do about it? The broadcaster Alex Pascal is taking the BBC to an industrial tribunal, claiming that once upon a time when he presented Black Londoners on this station, once upon a time, long time ago, that he was unfairly discriminated against. Have you experienced in the workplace, discrimination once upon a time that you weren't able to do anything about in those days, for whatever reason? But today, of course, in the new climate, you can do something about it. And would you? 0800 731 2000. I've been teeing up this shadeism conversation. There's a film out, a new film called No Shade. It's directed and written by one of my guests, Claire Anyiam-Osigwe. Hello, Claire, how are you?
Thanks for having us.
It's a pleasure. I think you mentioned this before once upon a time, didn't you?
I did a few months back when we did the festival premiere, but now we're doing a general release. So the film goes out this Friday, the 2nd of November, into selected Odeon cinemas across the country. And we're very proud of that because it's just a juggernaut, isn't it? This colorism, shadeism, it constantly keeps plaguing us. And I say us, the black community, with regards to popular culture, music, in the workplace, in our homes, unfortunately. And so the film just constantly seems to be resonating with the old, the young, and especially now because we're in Black History Month as well, what it means to be black politically and socially and how we treating each other. So I'm joined by my cast as well, the lead actors, Adele Oni and Kadeem Pierce. Very, very proud.
Adele, Kadeem, good to have you both in the programme.
Thank you.
Good to be here.
Yeah, just a couple of things. First of all, well done, Claire, in fact, well done to your entire production company, because you managed to get this film on at big cinemas, at the Odeon,
yes,
in Holloway, in Streatham, in Lee Valley, Surrey Quays, Greenwich, Birmingham, Park Plaza. Never mind the Birmingham. But you've got oh, who cares about Birmingham? Come on, seriously. Come on, no, who cares? Well, obviously, if you're from Birmingham, you care about Birmingham.
They're on air right now.
Yeah.
The cast are over on Birmingham, BBC Birmingham.
Good
so
for
let's
them.
pick up there.
It's not like they're on BBC Radio London. Come on.
Love them too.
Yeah.
But no, it's really significant. I'm the 6th black female director to do this in history.
The 6th?
Yeah, only the 6th
Well done.
in
Yeah,
123 years of cinema, and
to get your film
to get
on
theatrical release.
Release.
Yeah,
And
it's pretty significant.
You've done, as always with these things, we don't know how long they'll be in the cinemas. Tell me exactly when the release date is.
Release date is this Friday,
the
2nd of November, and it's in for at least 7 days. And then if people keep buying it, the demand is crazy. The website keeps crashing, and that's, I think, it just, like I keep saying, it's because every time someone sees the poster online on our social media, or
it's a horror poster. Horror poster. So,
I guess.
So, I don't know. In fact, Juwon's still here. Juwon, would you mind just describing, for the purposes of because this doesn't work on radio, you see.
Yes.
Juwon Sky, the
On
classical
our
musician,
Facebook.
still in the studio. Would you mind just describing the photograph you see? This is the image you see. Can you see it? I'm holding
well,
it
what do you
up
mean
to
the top one?
Yeah, the top one, yeah.
Well,
how would you describe that to our listeners? Better than me, I'm sure.
Well, it looks like a lady who has decided to do some interesting things to her face with some creams. I'm not sure what the lotions were actually meant to do.
Basically, it's a black woman with a white face.
Yes.
That's how I would have described it. Because, you know, we've only got 2 hours here every week on the programme. A black woman with a white face and a blonde hair.
Charitable.
But I know. You're trying to be pleasant. No time for pleasantries. This is radio, for goodness sake. So, a black woman with a white face, and a white face made out of makeup. Yeah, it's clearly makeup. She's got a blonde wig on. And but that doesn't happen in real life. There's no black woman that goes around like that. Come on, this is some of an exaggeration, surely.
No, not at all. I mean, sadly, it's incredible what women will do to emulate, the kind of standard of beauty that's perpetuated and showed to them from childhood. Women are lightening their skin permanently or semi-permanently through using cancerous bleaching creams. I'm a dermatologist, and the story kind of came to me because women were saying to me that men were telling them you'd be much prettier if you were lighter skinned.
Yeah.
At work, they were feeling that they were reaching a glass ceiling with regards to employment, that their lighter skinned counterparts were getting the promotions, and that they weren't the acceptable face of blackness. This sort of fetishization of light skin, and straighter hair and kind of more Eurocentric features. And so this image to me is it is stark. I remember when we put it out for the first time in February, the 28th of February, and it felt like the world just froze. Like, what is that? Like you said, it's quite horrific, but very confronting, because colorism is, and it's a taboo, and it's something that we like to sweep under the carpet. I've had a few people say to me, "Claire, why are you airing out our dirty laundry? We don't want white people to know that we've got this inward fighting going on." And I'm like, listen,
I
man,
don't want
they need
black people to know this.
Right.
No,
It's the first family feud, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
From 400 years ago in the slave master's house, when the lighter-skinned Negro was produced as a byproduct of rape, and therefore the darker-skinned Negro was outside in the fields, doing the sort of manual labour. The lighter-skinned Negro was in the house as a domestic slave worker. And I think that division of, okay, we came over here on the boats, but now there is that division and that divisive, constructed, systematic racism of crabs in a barrel,
Darwood Grace, you're also in this film, aren't you, as well? Are you directing it? Or?
No.
So you haven't got anything to do with that film. It's okay.
I'm gonna go and support it and watch it.
Of course,
Thank you.
of course.
Conversation.
Of course you would. Is this you, Adele? This white-faced blonde
Yeah,
hair?
it is.
Is that you?
Yeah.
Is that? Cause, yeah, I thought it was you. I thought it was you. I could just about penetrate the white makeup.
Someone that just looks like me.
Yeah, no, sure, no.
It's
Well,
black woman.
Actually
Black
her.
woman,
I've
I would say,
always wanted. I mean, genuinely, I'm one of those.
to whiten up your face.
Well, yeah,
Oh, gosh.
just for a while, just to see how it is, to have that experience. If white folks can experience blackness, maybe they will understand it better, and maybe if black folks can experience whiteness, maybe we'll understand it better. I always say, if car drivers could be forced to ride a motorcycle as I do, they'd probably kill me, wouldn't they? Yeah, no, that's not a good comparison.
No, I was going to say
They
it's
kill
a bit.
themselves. They kill themselves. These car drivers when they drive.
Conversation.
But you know what I'm trying to say?
I do.
Yeah. How did it feel then? How did it feel? Was it a metamorphosis of some sort?
Well, to some extent, it was kind of an extension of something I've already relatively experienced, because I grew up, when I came to England, I was born in Nigeria. When I came to England when I was 12, I went to a boarding school in Somerset, where I was pretty much the only black face, like majority. In my boarding house, I was the only black person. I remember my mum used to call me every 2 days, be like, "Are you still okay?" It's like, "Mummy,
Are
I'm
you
alive.
still black?
I'm still here."
Are you still black?
No. I think she was scared for my safety. It's like, not to be rude, but it's like, I'm not going to get lynched or anything, God forbid. But, well, to be fair, they saw blackness as cool there. But at the same time, they saw blackness as other. And it was about me trying to understand and fit into their whiteness, as opposed to understanding truly where I come from. So for a very long time, I lost what it was to be black, to be honest. It was when I came back into the industry that I started to actually recognize, oh, hold up, I am a black woman. I am a Nigerian woman. I can accept that about myself, So when I put on the makeup, what it actually did for me instead was just highlight, I could almost see the parallel of what my life would have been like if I were a white woman, because I've seen those instances of being white and the blessing that can be, or maybe the blessed ignorance that is. So in answer to your question, I kind of already understood it from the experience of my life, thankfully, in a way. And I say thankfully simply because now I'm very aware of how privileged a thing that is to not have had the typical or stereotypical black experience. Because even when I went into the workplace before I became an actress, I remember just thinking, it's not about being a black woman, it's just about being a woman and having to fight in relation to all the men around me. So the concept of a black woman was something that is still very fresh and new to me. But then I realized in Nigeria, I had a bit of an experience with it. But because I was young, a child, I was lucky that I didn't have to think of the concept of bleaching my skin to get a husband because I'm 12. We don't need to be marrying at that time anymore. We pray. You know what I mean? You know, so I saw it from a third-party perspective in Nigeria, watching people get married and understanding that if you want to marry young and you want to be a success story, in quotation marks, in the eyes of your Nigerian society, you must be fair, you must be beautiful. I understood what it was, the concept of being a wanted babe. I think you'll know what I mean. It's, yeah, because we had that term in school where the hot girls and the hot guys are like the wanted babes, wanted guys. I never got close to that, but it's okay. But yeah, so...
Let's get to the back of the queue on
you know what I'm saying?
All of us, yeah.
But thankfully, what I'm trying to say is essentially I've been able to see these parallels and these concepts. So when I put on that makeup, it sobered me and it nearly brought tears to my eyes because I didn't actually realize how much I would look at myself and say, wow, imagine if I had lived my whole life being a white girl with blonde hair. All those struggles I had, because I did have some struggles in Millfield growing up, you know, I had, you know, I'm not going to go into on air, but some serious issues that came with the concept of not feeling beautiful because I wasn't the skinny little white girl, you know, and if I didn't have braids or a weave, I didn't really feel very pretty. You know, my hair, once it was out, I was like, it's got to go back in soon. It's going to go back in soon. You know, and I always appreciated when it came back, when I had my long hair back and suddenly it'd be like, oh, I can't remember what it was like when you had your hair out, because they could never remember. I'm like, how difficult is it? Anyway, yeah, so...
You who have the experience from both British and Nigerian of this shadeism, where is it more profound? Where is it more pernicious, if you like?
Definitely Nigeria.
Really?
100%.
Really?
Yeah, as in when I was 15, I was using this cream called Macari because you know, my mum, I love her to bits, but you know, she was a product of her environment, and thankfully she's unlearning these habits and these inherent problems now. But oh my goodness, in Nigeria, are you kidding? No, bleaching cream is a natural. It's one of the. It's like every cream promises you fairer skin, more even toned skin. I'm like, what's wrong with your skin now? You know what I mean? It's in Nigeria because the end product. We still have these goals in Nigeria because we are still struggling to get the basics right. In some ways, you know, we're looking to make sure that we have electricity at all times, oil, the basic needs to then build a society of artists, etc. So to some extent, as far as I'm concerned, marriage is one of those things. Marriage is one of those milestones. So for a woman, if you're not married or you're not provided for, there's a problem. And to be married and to be provided for, you apparently have to be the most beautiful thing on earth. And to be the most beautiful thing on earth, you must be fair-skinned, you know? And I find that, well, honestly, I find it stupid, but I've lived it and I accepted it. When I was a kid, I just understood it to be the way it was. It took me a very, very long time to understand the beauty is not this. It's not what's outside. It took a very long time to unlearn that, and
it's not necessarily just skin deep if it has that kind of an impact. But Darwood Grace, you were very confident as soon as Adele was talking about Nigeria being more pernicious with regards to shadism. And you were saying definitely. What's your experience of that, though? Because you'd be looking at it from a male perspective, so you are representative of the culprit in this, if I can put it in that way. So what's your experience of it then? Why do Nigerian men start quoting Shakespeare and thinking, you know, oh, fair maiden, and so on, you know? Well, they do, don't they? That's essentially what you're talking about, isn't it? That's where it all comes from, isn't it?
I think it's self-hate.
Self-hate? We don't hate each other. No,
we hate ourselves.
No, not in Nigeria. No. We do over here. No, because we're Africans, you know. We hate each other. We're in a majority. We hate ourselves. But why would we hate ourselves? Majority black country. What's there to hate about yourself?
There's nothing to hate about yourself, but
Why?
maybe the programming and that has probably caused that.
Programming. What
The
kind of programming? I mean, are we literally talking about programs from Europe?
No,
show us,
like the mental
show us.
the mental
No,
program.
no, but I wasn't
for
joking
some,
when
for
I
some
said that.
reason, black people seem to, like most black people I speak to that come from Africa, when they come over here, they're afraid of white people. I've never understood that. Maybe it's because I was born here and I used to beat up white kids in school. So I just never had a fear of
Why
white
did you do
people.
that? What did
'Cause,
those white kids do to you?
I used to beat up everyone. Like,
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, so you were an equal opportunities bully.
Basically.
An equal opportunities bully. Yeah, that's okay.
basically.
Yeah.
But
I hope they're getting you back for that, by the way. Yeah.
nah.
What goes around comes around. What goes
It's
around
this. My life's not been a movie so far. It's not having that happy ending other people want. It's having a happy ending I want.
Okay.
So, but yeah, it's definitely self-hate. Like I think for some reason, subconsciously, we may feel that white people are better. Maybe we're jealous of white privilege, which we should be jealous of. Everybody should have that privilege. But I don't know. That's my thing.
No, do you know, and I'm not disputing what you're saying at all. The reason why I was surprised, because often the narrative is that it's when we find ourselves in the black condition in Britain or America, where we are a minority and there's institutional prejudice against us. When you're in Africa, when you're in Nigeria, nearly everybody is black. So you're looking more inwardly rather than outwardly, I would have thought.
Yeah,
Although,
but
having said that,
in Nigeria, being fair-skinned almost equates to a class system. So if you're the fairer skinned you are, the more kind of middle upper class you get treated. And this is not a financial thing, but it's just fair-skinned people are treated better, and that because they seem to represent this idea of beauty a lot more.
I would say one would also say the milestones of success that we see in Nigeria are imported from the Western society. So as far as we're concerned, you see the white person that comes into Nigeria, and they're usually with affluent, because they've come from places, oil companies like Shell, etc. So we naturally imbue that. And actually, I agree with what you were saying about programming, because I mean, the standards of beauty that we saw in Nigeria, the things I saw on TV were white. The TV shows, the film that actually made me, not film, but the films that made me want to become an actress were white films. 1940s Jean Kelly, Leslie Caron. I didn't understand the concept of black beauty on screen.
but
for a
when you
very
have
long time.
Nollywood, when you have the world's biggest film industry in Nigeria,
Now.
and its power, but we're talking about now, aren't we? In terms of shaders,
Yeah,
and we're
but
talking about now.
But if you think,
Why?
we're also talking about the roots of it at the same time, and why it is still so inherent. And yes, Nollywood is now growing into something, but even in Nollywood, name dark-skinned actresses for me, dark-skinned actresses. You know what I mean? I remember I was at dinner once with a friend, and he randomly we were watching, it was a Nigerian restaurant, we were watching the TV, and he randomly just went, "It pains me that there's no one darker than the certain shade in this music video." And I stopped and I looked at it and I'm like, whoa, actually right. We still have it.
But it's not just Nollywood. Like even America, growing up, you'd watch certain films and your favorite stars, and they always had a light skinned girl.
It's that paper bag thing.
And it was the weirdest thing to check, because it definitely. I think I grew up first wanting the light skinned girl, and I had to grow out of it to the point that I remember telling one of my friends, because he said some girl was really Chris and that, and I looked at her and I goes, "Nah, make her dark skinned, she's still as good looking." And I said something as ignorant as that, but then we would just made that a joke between us, make her dark skinned. And then one day I had to check myself and like, what do you mean make her dark skinned? Like, that doesn't make any sense. And that's why I had to unlearn that behaviour myself.
Kadeem
Yes.
Pierce, you're the co-lead in No Shade.
Yes, I am.
Yeah. When you hear all of this, does any of it resonate with you?
Definitely. It's something that I've seen from a very young age in my community. And I can definitely say that a lot of the times lighter skinned people are put on a pedestal, especially when you were talking about girls, Darwood. Sometimes I hear conversations with people at work, people growing up in school, that, oh no, she's too dark, man, she's too dark, she's blick, she's midnight, and he's midnight, and now I want a light, I want a light skin, or I want a red skin girl, or I want her because she's brown. Like, I come from a Jamaican background, and there's this.
Would you? You're going to talk about me love me car, me love me bike, me love me money and ting, but most of all, me love me browning.
Do you understand?
Yeah.
And one of my favorite artists from the dancehall community is Vibes Cartel. And
He's in jail for a long time. We're not going to be hearing from him or seeing him for a long time.
And
that merger thing was just a cover.
like I remember going to school and growing up listening to his music and seeing his clashes and seeing the spectrum that he went from, and the fact that he was still praised even though this was happening. So I think the music and his popularity outshone what was actually going on in the image he was portraying as well. And also, like, the times when he was challenged for why he has started to lighten his skin, and he said, oh, it was because he's using cake soap. and kind of trying to put a block on the bleaching aspect of it.
Yeah, Michael Jackson said it was vitiligo.
Exactly.
Vitiligo. And, what do I know? Why is it any of your business or my business or Darwood's business or Adele's business? Why is it any of our business if somebody wants to lighten up their skin? Why?
Because it affects us individually, and it's not something that is necessarily an outward thing and just pointing the finger. But if you've come close with people who definitely have an effect on your psyche from what they're perpetuating with their words, with the programming, the conditioning that these images portray on TV, because everybody, when they're younger, they want to be a movie star and they want to be the star. And if the star doesn't look like you, or other people seem to be celebrating more than what you look like, you're going to feel somehow inferior. So these are things that I'm glad are being addressed now. And if you see, colorism is everywhere right now.
We're going to talk about the content of the film shortly and how this story is told. But tell me, and given I asked both Adele and Darwood this, you who has got a perception from both the Jamaican aspect of things and the British aspect of things, where out of Jamaica and Britain is shadism most pernicious?
I would say it can be a lot of things that really reinforce shadism in the family, and it can come from both sides. So my family, I have a lot of shades in my family. My mother's side of the family are dark-skinned, my father's side of the family are light-skinned. I didn't grow up with my father, but I grew up in my mother's family, my mother's household. And I received some backlash and some praise as well. But things like growing up and your mother squeezing your nose, that was a thing. That was just a thing that they did. And then when you get older and you realise, why are you squeezing my nose? Why is my nose being squeezed? Is that to make it straighter?
Ah. I never knew that.
Who knows?
Okay, but it'd be exactly, who knows? But your mother wouldn't. Would she?
These are things. These are traits that were embedded, yeah, years ago, like decades ago, and these are things that people did. And on the flip side of it, I also had an uncle that said to me once that he would never date somebody that was my complexion.
Okay, hold on a second, and we don't know what your complexion is, so hold that thought right there. Mm-hmm. Just hold it. This is the beauty of radio. There's no shadeism in radio. Take me, for example. Take me, for example. I'm a white geezer. What? Who wants to deny that?
You sure, yeah?
Treasure.
We'll come back to this conversation in a moment or two, I promise you. 0800 731 2000 is my number if you'd like to add anything to the conversation or ask anything of my guest here in the studio as well. We're talking about a movie called No Shade. First, let's get the latest BBC Radio London news, but now the travel with Bill Sheldrake.
Thank you very much. Let's head to the M25 in Surrey. Still looking a little bit slow on the cameras from junction 13 Staines towards junction 11 for Chertsey. That part of the carriageway looking slow after there was an earlier collision. Now here comes Belgravia. One lane blocked off. It's lane 3, closed off by the police. They're dealing with a two-car collision near Hyde Park Corner, actually, so that's looking rather slow. We've got a broken down crane closing off the inside lane in Edmonton. This is the A10, just by the junction with Church Street. The trains looking much better. It's been quite a day for the trains, and not in a good way after those earlier major issues with the overhead wire cables, which affected all those services in and out of Paddington. It looks like it's all back to normal, heading out from Paddington towards Slough and Reading and Oxford. Have been carrying out some checks on the light departures boards. It's looking much better. And all is well with the tubes as well. Bill Sheldrake, BBC Radio London Travel. Next update at 9:30.
On digital radio, smartphone and speaker, and on 94.9 FM.
This is London.
This is BBC Radio London.
London's News at 9, I'm Mike Duran. For the second time in the last 2 weeks, passengers out of Paddington have been forced to walk down the tracks because of a collapsed cable overhead. Services have now resumed, but for many travellers, the repairs came too late.
50-minute ride home is now probably going to take us, 3 hours, 4 hours, because now we've still got to go to Waterloo. There's a delay at Waterloo because there's engineering on the Waterloo, it's only 1 hour, and then I've got to get collected from Wokingham to take home to Maidenhead.
Obviously, we don't blame the train drivers or anyone like that. It's beyond their control.
Air crash investigators are working tonight to discover why a helicopter crashed outside Leicester's King Power Stadium, with witnesses saying the pilot was a hero as he may have steered his craft away from people on the ground. The BBC understands 2 crew and 3 passengers were on board, including Leicester City owner Wichai Siwatana-Prapar. Fans have been laying flowers, scarves and football shirts at the scene.
Good football owners are hard to come by in this day and age, I think. He looks after the fans, he looks after the club. It's sad, isn't it?
I've been a Leicester fan since I was 10. You just had to come down just to say thank you, if nothing else.
We're such a big family at Leicester. You feel like you need to be with your family at times like this.
Officials in the American city of Pittsburgh have named the 11 people who were shot dead at a synagogue yesterday. Hate crime charges have been filed against the suspect, Robert Bowers. BBC correspondent Gary O'Donoghue is in Pittsburgh. He says Bowers chose his victims at random.
The youngest is in their mid-50s. The eldest is 97. So she spent nearly a century living through one of the worst centuries for the Jewish people. She got through that, but she lost her life here at the hands of a hate-filled madman during that service on the Sabbath.
This evening, the former England, Spurs and Chelsea manager Glenn Hoddle is seriously ill in hospital but responding well to treatment after a heart attack on his birthday. A broadcast technician has been praised for giving the 61-year-old emergency first aid when he collapsed at the BT Sports studio yesterday. Former Charlton and Crystal Palace midfielder Paul Mortimer has told BBC Radio London Hoddle lives and breathes football.
He loved football. He loved doing right by people within football. Fantastic coach, brilliant mentor. You get them visions of the World Cup where some of the players went over to meet him and he was instructing them as it was going on, and that is him. Can't help it because he is a coach at heart who loves to be able to improve players.
In the last few minutes, Britain's Lewis Hamilton has secured his 5th Formula One world title at the Mexican Grand Prix. He finished in 4th place, which was enough to clinch the championship with 2 races to spare. London's weather now, here's Sarah Thornton.
A cold night to come tonight across London, particularly out towards our suburbs. Here, temperatures close to freezing and not much above freezing in the centre of the capital. A chilly start then to your Monday. It's generally, though, a dry day. We could still see a few showers out towards the east, but a lot of sunshine, although it will still feel cool, with highs up to 10 Celsius, tempered by a brisk northeasterly wind.
BBC Radio London, it's 3 minutes past 9.
BBC Radio London at the weekend.
Dotun Adebayo on Sunday.
Call 0800 731 2000.
Dotun Adebayo, Sundays from 8. BBC Radio London.
Yeah, good evening, London. If you'd like to join the conversation this evening, the number to call is 0800 731 2000. For Dotun on Sunday this evening, we're talking about shadeism, which is, well, I think it's something, it's fair to say that it's not only a problem or an issue within the black community, within the Asian community as well. The idea that it's kind of an intra-racial prejudice, if I can put it that way. The lighter skin you are, the more likely you are to be deemed as beautiful, also be seen as successful, and perhaps have opportunities that the dark-skinned black folks can only dream about. Is it as much of an issue today as it once was? And one of my guests has already taken it right back to enslavement in that old Malcolm X kind of way about the fields Negro and the house Negro, etc. Is it still like that today, or have we gone beyond that? If it is still like that, what's it going to take? What's it going to take? Why is it still an issue in the black community? Lighter skin black folks more acceptable in some way, more attractive in some way. Are darker skinned black folks more acceptable in some way, more attractive in some way? Why can't we all get together and get along? Is my general question. 0800 731 2000. Because blaming it on the slave master, does that get us anywhere? I don't know. Look, the film that we're talking about is called No Shade. It's got something of a horror photograph of where all this leads to on the cover, and I'm pleased to say the woman that's modelling the horror photograph is here in the studio with me.
Dotun Adebayo, Sundays from 8.
Call 0800 731 2000.
BBC Radio London. BBC Radio London.
Yeah, one of my guests I haven't spoken to yet, Hannah Ajala, is with us. You're a broadcast journalist and podcaster. Are you as aware of shadeism as some of the other guests here in the studio, and indeed this film No Shade seems to portray? Are you as conscious? Is it as tangible as all that for you?
I don't know, I think it's a mixture, just going back to, when you're speaking about your experiences in Nigeria. I travel there avidly and I work there, and that was even a shock factor in itself to me as well, just looking at, the growing problem with it. But I think it just comes from the issue of self-hate. I'm a big believer in that. I've seen so many social media conversations saying that it's a combination of self-hate and mental.
But what do we mean by self-hate? Is it you, the victim, that hates yourself? Is it somebody else, a perpetrator, that hates you? Is there some institutional hatred, self-hatred? What do we mean by self? You don't hate yourself.
I think it's a combination.
Hate myself.
I think one of them could definitely be microaggressions that we've been surrounded by. So whether that's in the workplace, being the only black girl, or friendship groups, or even the example of seeing your own mother trying these like skin bleaching and lightening products. I try to make like a mini documentary. I live in Hackney, quite close to Dotun, where there's loads of like hair shops from Shabba to Pax to etc. And I asked if I could just speak to them a bit about their products, and I was immediately shut down. So it is quite problematic. You do see lots of undercover journalists try to go there and investigate the reason why you're selling these products, which are most likely to be illegal, on your counters.
Well,
so
we don't
that's
know
making
that for sure.
acceptable.
As you've named a couple of shops, let me say, we don't know that those shops are doing anything illegal.
Right, not necessarily pinpointing them, but I think that there definitely is something problematic with, the products that's being used and the ingredients of the products that have even been scientifically proven to cause health problems, as well as obviously blatantly changing your skin tone as well.
But self-hate as a subject in itself, linked to shadeism, just because, are we so tenuous in our psyches and the confidence of us, particularly as adults? Another thing when you talk about children, is our psyche so tenuous that we would, for example, hate ourselves because our mothers have said, "Oh, no, you should try and marry somebody who's lighter than you, or you should try and straighten your hair, or whatever." Are we that tenuous? Would you hate yourself because of that?
But that's the thing. I don't think it's necessarily that. I think the root of it comes from self-hate, but it's just dressed up in like fashion and what's seen as cool and trendy. So an example is a social media celebrity from Nigeria. His name is Bobrisky. And he literally just grew from outrageously whitening his skin, and he's grown like a career of it. Like, he's literally a celebrity, and he has his own line of skin whitening products. So he makes it look almost like sexy, like, oh, you can look really nice if you lighten your skin, like you're very beautiful. And I think that is rooted from self-hate, but it's just dressed fashionably. And the same thing is for hair, but I think it's a different kind of struggle. We have Afro hair, me myself, like growing up with it, and just looking at the struggles of it, and continuously being bombarded with these adverts of looking at straight hair as more beautiful and more pretty. But I think it's a different twist now for children in this particular generation, because you can see women on your screen like Viola Davis, Michelle Obama, Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, and you can see those examples of embracing your beauty. And as females, especially black women, we have imperfections, and we are insecure with some things, but we can look at these other women as examples.
How long will that last is what I'm asking, only because you go back 40 years or so, everybody was saying, I'm black and I'm beautiful, and there was a political term, there was a powerful term. So if that powerful political term can sort of fizzle out over the mist of time, I wonder how long there's a few actresses in Hollywood who are dark-skinned will last. Hold the thought, because Mikel in East Croydon has been waiting patiently to come on and join us in our conversation. So, Mikel, good evening.
Good evening, Dotun.
Good to speak to you.
Thanks for taking my call.
No, it's a pleasure.
Good evening to you, I guess.
It's a pleasure. Now, shadeism, is it something you've ever experienced?
I'm aware of it. I'm very aware of it. I mean, like, I don't know if I'd just like to give you a small narrative on how I was brought up. When I was like 11, 12, I got taken to Nigeria. Because, when you were young and you were kind of like getting a bit out of hand, they would say, hey, you want to misbehave there? Okay, we'll go and put you in a boarding school in Nigeria.
Yeah, I think everybody's experienced that in the studio.
But for me, I think I was very, very privileged. And I come from a very beautiful background. My father used to say to us, when you leave my house, you're in England. When you get back into my house, you're in Nigeria. I come from a home where I have like 6 sisters. I grew up with 2 mothers. I grew up with like 6 brothers. And I was right in the middle, so I got a very good balance. And my parents made sure the culture was instilled in us, both with the food, through the attire, through our traditions, through our history, and most importantly, through photographs that they had taken over a period of time. And the one thing I hear about, the whole colour thing, I understand that. But I think sometimes we forget that there are those of us who actually come from backgrounds where we're actually taught to be proud of who we are and where we come from. And the one thing I find growing up in Nigeria, of course you get certain individuals who see, the fair one, the yellow one, that one's fine. But at the same time, you have those of us who see, I like that dark skin woman. She's fine. I like that girl because she has her own hair. And what a lot of people forget as well is, when the period I grew up in Nigeria, I grew up there from probably 84. I went to boarding school, then I went to university. And back then, there was a large influence of so-called Western culture or Igbo culture, whether it was through the music or whether it was through the films. But at the same time, we were also always living within our culture. So as much as we had the Igbo films and the Igbo music, we also had our own culture. I mean, I'm a Robo. We were taught Robo from England before I went to Nigeria. I learned my language, I understood my language. And at the same time, going to Nigeria, I was also influenced by other cultures, whether it be Igbo, Yoruba, etc. And the one thing I mean, I'm so privileged, and especially when I look back, I praise my parents for the way they brought us up. Because now we're instilling that in the new generation. And with the whole Afrobeat and Nollywood, what you have now is you have a generation who are now taking hold of their culture, and they're not ashamed to be on the bus and singing Wizkid or Davido. Back in the days, I remember we had Fela. I remember Fela put out a song called Yellow Fever in 1978. It is still prevalent.
Yeah.
And it's funny, because when a lot of people say they listen to Fela, and I say, do you understand the philosophy of Fela? Because Fela wouldn't just sing in to say, hey, let's have a good time. No, Fela was educating me. You know, and I was privileged because I grew up in a time where I was in university, and I went to the shrine, and I saw Baba perform. I saw him when he did Yabi's Night every Tuesday, and that was an education. And what you have now is you have a totally new generation who are embracing their African selves. And I'm not just talking Nigeria. I mean, I'll give you an example. My brother and I, we're actually into making films and writing, because we're writing for a new generation. I'm not interested in the Oyibo man. The Oyibo man has done his thing, you know, but I'm more concerned with being African. And what we're doing is we're now educating our children to understand that, no, you are beautiful. And you are beautiful as you. Of course, you have the self-haters. I'm not interested in them. They can stand in the corner and hate themselves all they want. I'm more interested in those who want to walk around. I mean, I'll give you an example, Dotun. Every time I walk past a sister who has natural hair, I praise her.
Why?
I say, my empress, because I'll give you an example, Dotun. What you're talking about, I see it, especially amongst the so-called black man. He loves the Oyibo woman. And it's almost like he wants to take aspects of the Oyibo woman.
But why do you have to praise somebody for having natural hair? That's what I'm trying to get to. Why?
Dotun, look where we are. Look where we are. You know, I'm aware of where I am. And I'm doing it because I respect that. I respect the fact that you can walk. I mean, Dotun, I'll give you an example. I have a niece who's 15. She walks around with natural hair. Do you know what so-called black girls say to her? Oh, you shouldn't wear hair like that, you know. It's not nice, it's not this, it's not that. You know, it's almost like she's trying to instill in her that you need to be hating yourself. You need to go into the Indian man shop and buy that weed. You know, so when I walk past, especially young girls, I say, oh, sister, good afternoon, good evening.
So
you know, you look beautiful.
Tell me this, do you walk past a dark-skinned girl and praise her rather than... So you walk past the light-skinned girl...
you look beautiful.
No, hang on, you're walking past the light-skinned black woman.
No, Don.
No,
it's not
I'm asking.
Past the light-skinned woman. That is what I see as beautiful. You may see the fair woman as beautiful, but in my world, that is beautiful.
But this is the point, and thank you, Mikhail, because we're running out of time. Otherwise, I would carry on your fascinating conversation. I promise you, because that in itself is a program by itself. And there are many other callers that I'm going to come to as well. But let me just throw this question very quickly to one of my guests. Indeed, Claire Anyiam-Osigwe, who's here with us. You're the maker, you're the director, the writer, and the co-star of this No Shade film. We know, you know, I know that out of many people of all shapes and shades and sizes, we are all African. Out of many, many shapes and shades and sizes. So when we talk of shadism, somebody's pursuit to look lighter. What are we saying about the lighter skinned black woman? Should they not be loved too?
Oh my God, of course. You know, it's so funny because to bring this back to the film, without giving too many spoilers at this point away.
No, you're going to give spoilers. Trust me, I'm going to get the spoilers out of you in the next 12 minutes or so.
But literally, it's a case of there's this beautiful scene, which is the demonstration of my solidarity, the darker skinned woman's solidarity with her lighter skinned sister, to say that, you know what, we are, don't enjoy using this word, but victims of the same struggle. They want you to be a bit of me and they want me to be a bit of you. And what we're saying is that no shade is superior. That's the line that comes out of the film from a black man saying to another brother, look, bro, all of this light and dark don't matter. All that we are, blood and bone, energy, vibrations, connection, yeah?
But it does matter, because that's the whole point of the film, that it matters in society. It matters very much in society. I'll come back to that in a moment. Alade is here, because I think, Alade, you have got an issue with what Adele said earlier about the lack of dark-skinned stars in Hollywood, yeah? Am I right?
Yes. Actually, I have I have a few things to say. I'm a bit nervous.
No need to be nervous. No need to be nervous.
Someone I've followed for many, many years, and your brother and all. What I'd like to say is that Genevieve Nnaji is one of the biggest stars in Nollywood, and she's dark-skinned. I can name so many others. There's Stephanie Okereke, who left. And in Yoruba language, there's something called Aduma Adon. That is black and shine. That is the height of beauty in Yoruba kind of way of looking at it. So,
and yet,
I don't know where this concept is coming from.
I'll tell you where it's coming from, Alade. And, oh, by the way, before I go on to that, Adele, are you accepting of the stars that Alade has just named?
No, I fully agree, Genevieve Nnaji. I do know of these stars, so you are right in that there are some examples of dark-skinned actresses
Many
in
examples,
Nollywood.
not just one, many.
Didn't say one, I said some. I agree with you on that concept. However, it doesn't mean that there isn't still some credence to what I'm saying, nor is there not credence to what you're saying as well, if that makes any sense.
It makes sense to me. And the one thing I want to ask you, Alade, when you say you don't know where it comes from, I'll tell you where it comes from. My cousin, who grew up in Nigeria, and she lived most of her life in Nigeria, but her mother is white. She used to say to me, when she would go on a bus, you know, like in Lagos, you know, you go on a bus becomes, especially when it stops at a traffic light or in a traffic jam, it becomes a supermarket, you know. All the hawkers on the street rush on to sell you biscuit or chewing gum. And some of them should be at school at the age of 5 or 6 or 7. But they're businessmen already at that young age. This is the beauty of Nigeria, of course. Chewing gum, you want Wrigley's? I have Wrigley's. You want biscuit? I have biscuit. But when it comes to soap, my cousin would refrain from buying it because if she bought soap, everybody on the bus looks at, that is how she does it. Can I have some of that soap? Hey, boy, young boy, give me some of that soap. Oh. That's where it comes from, surely.
Yes, but that is just, that is artificial. It's not really deep. The deep beauty, I mean, for example, most men would not marry a light-skinned person. Most men will eventually marry a dark-skinned person. For some reason, most Nigerian men do. They take dark-skinned women more seriously.
Alade, did you say most men would not marry a dry-skinned woman?
No.
Because I've never met a dry-skinned woman. Yeah.
Most men would eventually marry a dark-skinned woman. Most men in Nigeria. They take them more seriously. Honestly. They date light-skinned women, but they actually would eventually marry. You look back, maybe uncles, brothers, whatever, you would find that it's a general thing that has happened. In my family, I've seen it.
Well, in a way, you're right, because there are more dark-skinned women in Nigeria than light-skinned women. Scientifically, mathematically, you're right. But what about this? And Alade, with your permission, and do call me again. I'm looking forward to speaking to you more often now that you finally got over your nerves. I'm going to throw it to the ladies in the house. To my ladies, and to the gentlemen as well, here in the house. So only got a few minutes of this conversation to go. Alade, thank you very much. What about that then? Let's start with Hannah, first of all. In fact, let's start. Do you mind, Hannah? I want to start with Kadeem. Yes. Kadeem being in the film and being the male co-lead here. Most men, I know you haven't been to Nigeria, but even what Alade said there, does that resonate with you that most men would eventually marry a dark-skinned woman out of preference, in a way, because they take dark-skinned women more seriously than light-skinned women? To me, that sounds like, racism. But is it true?
I think it depends on the geographical aspect and where you're coming from or where you live, because I can only speak from a black British perspective of growing up in London. And when you look at footballers and a lot of role models that these young boys are seeing, I don't see them marry a lot of dark-skinned women.
Oh, do they marry black women at all, these footballers? Do any of them marry black women? One or two, I know, but most of them marry white women.
Yeah, the pictures that you see in the media, you often see a black footballer, very successful, rich footballer with a white counterpart. So
blonde-haired as well, not just white, but blonde-haired counterpart. Really, genuinely.
I definitely think that it depends where you are, because I don't really see that in London, particularly. So
footballers' wives are generally not black.
Exactly.
Or their girlfriends.
Exactly. So I think that could come from the whole thing of success. What does success look like?
Sorry, Darwood, I want to bring you in as well on that. Does that resonate?
Yeah, the worst thing is when I see somebody like a black man that's doing well, successful, and he brings out his wife or he talks about his wife, I'm always fingers crossed, like, please be a black woman. And every time, like, I know the ones that do, like Vincent Kompany's got a black wife. Do you understand? Like, I remember my man during the World Cup, he had to rush back to his the Man City player, Delph, Fabian Delph. He had to run back to, and then I saw his wife and it was a white woman, and like I was like, oh, dude. But
why?
There's nothing wrong with the love, but you know what it is? It's just when you get to a certain status, you become an example by default. And if this is what young black boys are seeing as what you said, like as a definition of success, then like,
is there anything wrong with that?
There's nothing wrong with it. It's just that if your mum's black and your sisters are black, you have to bring home that they are beautiful too. Yeah. And if you go out of your race to parade a white woman, it's kind of damaging. I'm all for love and love being the winning factor, but I don't think everyone's doing it out of love. Like,
so if there was only
probably is love because he's married and he's got kids, but most of the young footballers, I don't think that's love.
I'm not sure if you're right about that.
Okay.
But I'm not
about
Juan.
About the black women that are having white husbands and white partners, because there seems to be quite a lot more of those nowadays than there used to be, and a lot of them are dark-skinned black women too.
Yeah.
So I mean, how about that?
I mean, because if I can jump in here, because I mean,
Adele,
my ex was white, to be honest, and a lot of the stuff that's been said, including from the callers, just seems to resonate and continue to perpetuate this concept of self-love versus self-hate. The more we love ourselves, the more we are able to see our own and love and respect our own, and actually, see the beauty in our own. Because I can actually resonate with that as well. Because I remember, like I said, growing up in a boarding school where I resonated with the concept of being as white as possible, in quotation marks, because so as to fit in. I saw white men as the most attractive. I actually really did not check for my race at all.
And I'm presuming that's changed somewhat now. And how did the change come about?
I genuinely think it's because I started to identify myself.
Right.
And understanding myself. I'm a black woman. I love my natural hair now. I'm not tired of... The natural hair is no longer this fight. It's actually beautiful.
So nobody had to squeeze your ears like we used to do in Nigeria, squeeze your ear to nearly tears. Nobody had to do that.
No, but I mean, at the same time, there are different aspects of this that are really amazing to me. But all I know is that if we are checking for one shade over another, to me, that's colorism. It's not necessarily light skin. It's not necessarily light skin over. It's we prefer a certain. That's a problem.
But then again, as Darwood was saying, some people might just have that preference. Nature knows no colour bounds. Sometimes it's just about love. Look, Claire, we've only got a little bit of time, so I do want to ask you. Tell us how you managed to encapsulate this a contentious issue and wide-ranging subject into a drama. What essentially is the plot here?
The plot is about a successful black girl. Her name's called Jade. She's a photographer. She's a freelancer. She works. She's looking for love. She's got a best friend called Danny. Danny's played by Kadeem Pierce. Jade is played by Dotun. And basically, he's made it clear to her in the past and in the present that I love you like a sister, but I could never cross that line with you because you're shade. I can't see us really being together, even though they're both from the same community. In that sense,
I was thinking when you were saying that, Kadeem, yeah, I can see he's a matinee idol, but now he's suddenly become a rogue. Just one sentence.
Oh, bless. Well, yeah. He plays the role with so much conviction, and she goes through other trials and tribulations, like, you know, trying out different hairstyles, different looks, filters on social media, using dating apps to find love, and is kind of blatantly, quite frankly, told by different men that colorism is an issue. She has a friend that is, you know, getting married, so she's got that added pressure of I need to find someone. And by the end of it, you know, she discovers that self-love is the key. It's out Friday, the 2nd of November.
It is.
Tickets are live now on Odeon website, and get the app. Download the app and get your ticket.
You can see it on the Odeon Holloway, the Odeon Streatham, the Odeon Lee Valley, the Odeon Surrey Keys, the Odeon Greenwich, and the Odeon somewhere called Birmingham. Let's forget about that last one. Thank you to all my guests. Thanks to Claire Anyiam-Osigwe, the director, writer and co-star of the film No Shade. Thanks as well to Adele Oni and to Kadeem Pierce, both actors in the movie. Thanks to Darwood Grace, who's a filmmaker. He's got talents of his own as well. And thanks for coming in, Darwood. Thanks to Hannah Ajala, a broadcast journalist. And we'll talk again, Hannah. We'll get you back in. In fact, we'll return to the subject at some point. And many thanks to Juwon Sky. Just remind us very quickly again, where can we see you?
At Longfield Hall, 50 Natchball Road, SE5 9QY.
And that's on Saturday. And is there a website, quickly?
Yes, longfieldhall.org.uk.
Time for the latest news. I'll be back at the end of this. So let's get the headlines now with Mike Duran.
Thanks very much.